Hi there. I looked for an audio for this excerpt and I couldn't find one. It doesn't mean that there isn't one, but I couldn't find one. So I told you that I would record myself. So here we go. From I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. So I want you to focus on two things. First is that this is an excerpt, which means that it's just a piece of a greater piece of work. And we can assume that there is text before this and then text after this. So this is just a piece of it. It might be a chapter. To tell you the truth, I'm not sure. So that first. And then second, I just want you to think about the title for a minute. This is an excerpt from the title, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Okay. A lot of you said that the dialect, the slang, the dialogue was difficult. So I completely understand. I actually expected that. So I'm going to actually, I think, put this into two different audios. And so I'm starting on page 5. And this is, I don't know, I think it's like 8 pages. And so I'm planning to stop at the top of page 10. And then I'll go ahead and put out another video. Okay. Mrs. Bertha Flowers was the aristocrat of black stamps. She had the grace of control to appear warm in the coldest weather, and on the Arkansas summer days, it seemed she had a private breeze which swirled around, cooling her. She was thin without the tout look of wiry people, and her printed voile dresses and flowered hats were as right for her as denim overalls for a farmer. She was our side's answer to the richest white woman in town. Her skin was a rich black that would have peeled like a plum if snagged, but then no one would have thought of getting close enough to Mrs. Flowers to ruffle her dress, let alone snag her skin. She didn't encourage familiarity. She wore gloves, too. I don't think I ever saw Mrs. Flowers laugh, but she smiled often, a slow widening of her thin black lips to show even small white teeth, then the slow, effortless closing. When she chose to smile on me, I always wanted to thank her. The action was so graceful and inclusively benign. She was one of the few gentlewomen I've ever known and has remained throughout my life the measure of what a human being can be. Mama had a strange relationship with her. Most often, when she passed on the road in front of the store, she spoke to Mama in that soft yet carrying voice. "Good day, Miss Henderson." Mama responded with, "How you, Sister Flowers?" Mrs. Flowers didn't belong to our church, nor was she Mama's familiar. Why on earth did she insist on calling her Sister Flowers? Shame made me want to hide my face. Mrs. Flowers deserved better than to be called sister. Then Mama left out the verb. Why not ask, "How are you, Mrs. Flowers?" With the unbalanced passion of the young, I hated her for showing her ignorance to Mrs. Flowers. It didn't occur to me for many years that they were as alike as sisters, separated by formal education. Although I was upset, neither of the women was in the least shaken by what I thought an unceremonious greeting. Mrs. Flowers would continue her easy gait up the hill to her little bungalow, and Mama kept on shelling peas or doing whatever had brought her to the front porch. Occasionally, though, Mrs. Flowers would drift off the road and down to the store, and Mama would say to me, "Sister, you go on and play." As I left, I would hear the beginning of an intimate conversation, Mama persistently using the wrong verb or none at all. "Brother and Sister Wilcox is surely the meanest." "Is, Mama, is." "Oh, please, not is, Mama, for two or more." They talked, and from the side of the building where I waited for the ground to open up and swallow me, I heard the soft-voiced Mrs. Flowers and the textured voice of my grandmother merging and melting. They were interrupted from time to time by giggles that must have come from Mrs. Flowers. Mama never giggled in her life. Then she was gone. She appealed to me because she was like people I had never met personally, like women in English novels who walked the moors, whatever they were, with their loyal dogs racing at a respectful distance, like the women who sat in front of roaring fireplaces, drinking tea incessantly from silver trays full of scones and crumpets, women who walked over the heath and read Morocco-bound books and had two last names divided by a hyphen. It would be safe to say that she made me proud to be Negro just by being herself. She acted just as refined as white folks in the movies and books, and she was more beautiful, for none of them could have come near the warm color without looking gray by comparison. It was fortunate that I never saw her in the company of white folks. For since they tend to think of their whiteness as an evenizer, I'm certain that I would have had to hear her spoken to commonly as Bertha, and my image of her would have been shattered like the unmendable Humpty Dumpty. One summer afternoon, sweet milk fresh in my memory, she stopped at the store to buy provisions. Another Negro woman of her health and age would have been expected to carry the paper sacks home in one hand. But Mama said, "Sister Flowers, I'll send Bailey up to your house with these things." She smiled that slow, dragging smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. I'd prefer Marguerite, though." My name was beautiful when she said it. I'd been meaning to talk to her anyway. They gave each other age group looks. Mama said, "Well, that's all right then, sister. Go and change your dress. You going to Sister Flowers." The chiffa was a maze. What on earth did one put on to go to Mrs. Flowers' house? I knew I shouldn't put on a Sunday dress. It might be sacrilegious. Certainly not a house dress. Since I was already wearing a fresh one, I chose a school dress, naturally. It was formal, without suggesting that going to Mrs. Flowers' house was equivalent to attending church. I trusted myself back into the store. "Now don't you look nice?" I had chosen the right thing for once. "Mrs. Henderson, you make most of the children's clothes, don't you?" "Yes, ma'am, sure do. Store-bought clothes ain't hardly worth the thread it take to stitch them." "I'll say you do a lovely job, though. So neat. That dress looks professional." Mama was enjoying the seldom received compliments, since everyone we knew, except Mrs. Flowers, of course, could so competently, praise was rarely handed out for the commonly practiced craft. "I try, with the help of the Lord, Sister Flowers, to finish the inside just like I does the outside. Come here, sister." I'd buttoned up the collar and tied the belt apron-like in back. Mama told me to turn around. With one hand, she pulled the strings, and the belt fell free at both sides of my waist. Then her large hands were at my neck, opening the button loops. I was terrified. What was happening? Take it off, sister. She had her hands on the hem of the dress. I don't need to see the inside, Mrs. Henderson. I can tell. But the dress was over my head and my arms were stuck in the sleeves. Mama said, That'll do. See, here, Sister Flowers. I've French seams around the armholes. Through the cloth film, I saw the shadow approach. That makes it last longer. Children these days would bust out of sheet metal clothes. They so rough. That is a very good job, Mrs. Henderson. You should be proud. You can put your dress back on, Marguerite. No, ma'am. Pride is a sin. And according to the good book, it goeth before fall. That's right. So the Bible says it's a good thing to keep in mind. I wouldn't look at either of them. Mama hadn't thought that taking off my dress in front of Mrs. Flowers would kill me stone dead. If I'd refused, she would have thought I was trying to be womanish and might have remembered St. Louis. Mrs. Flowers had known that I would be embarrassed, and that was even worse. I picked up the groceries and I went out to wait in the hot sunshine. It would be fitting if I got a sunstroke and died before they came outside. Just dropped dead on the slanting porch. There was a little path beside the rocky road, and Mrs. Flowers walked in front, swinging her arms and picking her way over the stones. She said, without turning her head to me, I hear you're doing very good schoolwork, Marguerite, but that it's all written. The teachers report that they have trouble getting you to talk in class. We passed the triangular farm on our left, and the path widened to allow us to walk together. I hung back in the separate, unasked, and unanswerable questions. So I think I'll go ahead and stop there. Why don't you take a look at your lit work, and then I will go ahead and do audio 2, the second part of the story, separately.